Hi hand readers, in today's video I'm talking a little bit about the moons in our nails and whether or not we can interpret anything about people's character and temperament from the moons. A quick moment to introduce myself. My name's Jennifer. I've been reading hands for 30 years. I've written several books about hand reading and palmistry and chirology. I'm particularly interested in the counseling and coaching component of the hand reading craft, and you'll find information about my books below. In several of my other videos, I've asked and suggested that you guys comment below in terms of requests around what you'd like me to cover here on YouTube. And I have had some very direct requests. Somebody's asked me to talk about mounts, another person asked me to talk about thumbs. Of course, we can go on for years and years talking about all the interesting aspects of hand reading. But if you have a particular request, please feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear from you. What are moons? So moons are the crescent-shaped, whitish section that generally takes up about the fifth of the nail bed at the base of the nail, closest to the finger. And they're called lunula in scientific or medical terminology. It comes from the diminutive Latin, the diminutive rather, of luna, the Latin word for the moon. And of course, being crescent-shaped, they are rather like a moon. The lunula or moon is actually a protective covering for the blood vessels that lie underneath the base of the nails. Moons relate more specifically to health than they do to character traits. And again, as I've mentioned before, us hand readers, we're not really experts in the field of health diagnosis, but really what we're looking for is some basic understanding of some common indicators. When our moons are particularly large, there is a direct medical link to hypothyroidism, Graves' disease, that's an overactive thyroid, and to high blood pressure. When they are significantly small, there's the opposite. There's the underactive, the Hashimoto's disease, the underactive thyroid, and there could be vitamin B12 depletion, there can be depression, and there could even be some link to kidney issues. And then when there are no moons, the general idea is that the constitution of the person is in some way weaker. But really what I wanted to touch on today is a little bit more, as I mentioned, to do with the character and temperament of the owner of the moons. And if you look online, you'll find some real pop stuff around something about that if the moon is on the index finger, the person will get good news. If the moon is on the middle finger, the Saturn finger, or the earth finger in the 5-element system, there's something to do with making money. There's something about that if the moon appears on the fire or ring or sun finger, the Apollo finger, that the person will rise in status in their lives. And that if the moon appears on the Mercury finger, the baby finger, the air finger in the 5-element system, that it some way enhances the person's communicative abilities, or that they are good at business. And there's also one for the thumb, which basically speaks about progress and auspiciousness. But as I say, pop, not to be trusted, not really authenticated. Everybody has moons. Most of us, we can see our moons. I mean, there are those of us without moons, and as I mentioned earlier, it might possibly relate to either health or low energy levels. But let's have a look now at the colors of the moons, because it's within the colors of the moons that you might be able to pick up something about the temperament of the person. When I talk about being able to pick up something of the people's character and temperament from the color of their moons, one needs to really be absolutely certain that you're cross-referencing to many, many other markings and features of the hands. We never read one thing in isolation. But let's say, for example, the moons look particularly white. Now, white moons are healthy generally, but if they're very white, if they're like overly white, if I could say that white really would jump out, it's anomalous to the rest of the color of the nail. This does obviously, I would say obviously, but it's somehow linked to anemia. You can pretty much see there might be something anemic in the person. It can also link to liver stuff. But on a character and temperament level, let's consider that the whiteness could show deep hurt in the person, maybe even depression as well. Moons that are tinged with a blue or purple or even blackish color clearly could indicate something quite severe on the health front, such as, for example, a circulatory problem, a cardiovascular problem, a respiratory problem. But on a rather character and temperament level, this is a moody person. This is a person who might be very difficult to get along with, and there's something intense about them. And lastly, let's talk a little bit about a yellowish look to the moon or to the area around the moon. And it's quite obvious that that is quite likely linked to some sort of imbalance in the person's liver. But in terms of their character and temperament, we might find crankiness, irritability, self-criticism, and pessimism. In next week's video, I'm going to talk about bitter nails, and that will be the wrap for the section on nails. After that, let's see where it takes me, maybe mounts, maybe thumbs, and all sorts of other possibilities. I'm also keen to talk to you about fingerprints. That's really my area of passion, you can say. When I first started studying hand reading way back in 1990, I was dreaming about fingerprints. These images of the fingerprint patterns were swirling around in my psyche so much. I was even dreaming of meanings for fingerprints. So in a sense, fingerprints really beckoned me, and thus the name or my branding, which is, of course, God-given glyphs, which is a short term. The word glyph is a short for dermatoglyphic. All right, so if there's anything you'd like me to speak more of, as I mentioned, please make a comment below and like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.